Hi guys, and welcome to another Python programming tutorial by TechPreneur, and in this tutorial we are going to learn about functions in Python. What is functions in Python? It's nothing but a way to actually group your code together so that you can actually use that particular group of code again and again without actually redefining that particular code. So functions can be actually parameterless functions in which you don't pass any parameters, and it can be parameter functions in which you pass in parameters as an arguments in that particular function. So what is the best example of functions? The best example of functions which I can say is the print statement, wherein it takes parameter as what you want to print as a string and it actually prints it out for you. So how is functions actually defined in here? So function is actually defined in here with the keyword def, which stands for define, and followed by the name of the functions which you want to define, and followed by parenthesis, the opening and the closing one, and followed by a semicolon. And then in here there's an indentation in here, and after this you define something. So suppose this is a function. In here we have defined a function known as test. So it's like def, which is the keyword to define a function, the function name, which in this particular case is test, and opening and closing brackets followed by its semicolon. So and in here we define print, just hello there, welcome to TechPreneur. To actually call that particular function, you need to just go in there and type in there as the function name followed by the brackets, and if you enter, just execute it and it's gonna print it for you. Hello there, welcome to TechPreneur. So inside function you can actually pass in parameters as well. So how do you define as a parameter? So again, def, the keyword, followed by our function name and the parameter. In this particular case we are going to define a function which is going to add two values and then return it back for us. So we pass in a parameter as a and b, and we can actually return back as a plus b. So it's going to return back us a value. So how can we actually use it? So if you want, we can actually save that particular value in a variable. Suppose result is equal to add of 5 comma 6, and if you actually print out result, so it's gonna give us back the added value of 5 plus 6, and it's gonna return it back for us, which is 11 in this case. Again, you can actually define anything inside a function and then actually call it. Suppose you define a function on a square, which is gonna take parameter as a value, a numeric character, and then it's gonna return back the squared result for you guys. So we define a function known as square, and in here we have a parameter as x, and it's going to print us. Now in this case we are not actually returning a value, we are actually printing that particular value back inside that function itself. So in order to call that particular function, sorry, sq, suppose we pass in here as 4, and it's going to return us back 16. So similarly, we can actually define anything. If you want to find an area of a rectangle, we want to find an area of a square or area of a circle or any kind of thing, we can actually define it in here. So here it is like a defined rectangular area, and it's going to return us and in here we are passing as a parameter as length as well as the breadth, and it's going to return us back the length cross breadth. So it's going to return us the area back. So moving down, we can actually pass in here arguments as a list itself. So suppose we define a list known as test list, and in here we have a couple of numbers inside as an element. Moving down, if we define a function which actually takes a list as a parameter, so actually we can print in here the maximum in that particular list, the minimum in that particular list for like min. This max and min is nothing but it actually returns the maximum from that particular list, and min it actually returns back minimum value from that particular list. We can actually access the elements of that particular list. By first elements, it's going to be at 0th index, so we are going to print first element. It's going to be test list of 0 because it's going to be 0th index. The last element, it's going to be the last element. So in order to access the last element, we have to go in here and type in here as -1 because it's gonna take the last element from the last, means it's gonna take the element from the last, so it's here as -1. And if we actually execute it in here, we're gonna get it as, no, in order to execute it, st, and we're gonna pass in here as test list. So in here, as we can see, the maximum value is 232, the minimum value is 2, and the first element is 23, and the last element is 31. So we can actually, group here. What we did, we actually grouped all this code into one single function, and no matter how many times we call it, it's gonna get called, and we don't need to define these again and again. So, and also, suppose you have different list, suppose you have list of all those numbers and you want to find these particular values from that particular list. Suppose you want to find a maximum, a minimum. Suppose you are doing a stock analysis, you want the maximum value, you want the minimum value, or something like that. So in here, you don't need to actually define that particular code again and again. You can actually group them together into a function and then call that particular function at once and pass in the parameter as a list in here. So, as you can see in here, it's really helpful. So these are just the definition, calling of that particular function which we define on the top. Moving down, suppose we are building a to-do kind of list, and in here we have these daily tasks which we need to execute again and again. Like, these are the daily tasks which we need to do it again and again. So we can actually group them together, print them like go for running, go to gym, eat healthy, make videos, reply to comments, as well as read books. So now if we call in here daily task back again, it's going to return us back what we need to do daily. So these are the daily tasks which we do, and we don't actually, we can actually group them together in a function and then, call that particular function again and again. So this is going to be really helpful for us to actually, reuse that particular code again and again. So this is what is the whole idea behind functions. So if you really found this video helpful and useful, do subscribe and do like that particular video. And always, and if you guys want any new type of video to be made in here in Techpreneur, or if you're facing any kind of problem on a particular topic in Python or in any other particular programming language, do let me know in the comments down below, and I'll help you guys with it. Thank you guys for watching.